Hi, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to talk you through the process behind my ink and wash doorway that I painted for the May Paint With Me challenge. So if you're curious about what the Paint With Me challenge is, you can find that at the link in the description below this video. And if you're curious about what supplies I used and what colors I used for this particular painting, then you can also find that in the description below this video. So make sure to check that out. So let's dive right in, and as you can see, I am doing a pencil sketch before I ink the actual drawing. And I typically will do a quick pencil sketch, even if it's just an outline, to get the composition right on the page. I just like knowing that things are placed somewhat correctly before I get started with the ink lines. And so you can see here that I have probably the majority of the ink lines that I want to put in already done in pencil. I think just working through it with pencil helps me make decisions before I go and ink, and it gives me confidence that I know what I'm going to be inking, but it also gives me two chances to decide on details, because when I start inking, then I can think about, again, do I want to include more detail or less detail as I'm starting to do the ink sketch? So a note about these pens, if it's not obvious, if you're doing watercolor wash over the pen, or rather the ink in the pen you're using needs to be waterproof. And I really love using fountain pens because I feel like the ink flows really nicely and I can get different widths for it. And I think it just works well with texture on watercolor paper. And so that's just my preference, and I wanted to share that with you. And when I do the ink lines, I think you can see that I keep my lines very, very loose, and I do it purposefully. I think I could probably draw really, really straight lines if I wanted to, but I do this on purpose. I make them wiggly on purpose because I like giving the sketch a little bit of character. You can see my lines also aren't continuous. I skip around a lot, and that's also very purposeful. So I think when you're doing your own version of ink and wash, then it's something that you might notice that you just do almost intuitively, like you have your own style. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And so that's just how I approach it. And I thought I'd point it out in case it helps you kind of be a little bit more aware, or to notice it the next time you're sketching. So after I do the ink lines, I'll go in and do the watercolor wash. And the reason why I love these ink and wash sketches, or rather paintings, so much is because I feel like the ink lines give me an outline that I can come back and color in with my watercolors. I'm not actually just using it like a coloring book, but it is almost like the guidelines are there, and I have time now to play and have fun with watercolors and really see the watercolor effects and let them really do what they are known for, right? To blend and to bleed and to create all of these wonderful effects on top of the line work that I've already done. And because I already have line work, it's really hard to sort of mess up the watercolor wash, so to say. If you're just doing a watercolor painting alone and you have no ink lines, you're relying on the watercolors, you're relying on you and the paintbrush to create all of the forms to make it look like what you meant it to look like, right? But if you have ink lines, it's already there. The picture is already there. That's how I think about it. And even without the watercolors, it works. But with the watercolors, it just makes it even better. And so even if I mess up the watercolors, it's okay, because you can still tell what it's supposed to be because there's a drawing. And so I think that's what's so freeing about this style. It makes the watercolor part a lot less anxiety inducing, because I know that happens, right? It still happens to me. When I paint with watercolors, there's still those moments where I'm thinking, is this going to turn out the way I want it to? Or is this going to be a mess? And I think here, it is a mess. I would say for my wash on this sketch in particular, it's not my favorite, and it feels messy, especially in the foliage. I think I could have done much better, but it still looks like a doorway. And that's the beauty of this ink and wash style. You can't really mess it up after you've put on the ink lines. And I think the thing here that I wanted to practice the most was the shadow on the door. And I think this is a beautiful example of why ink and wash is such a lovely way to work with watercolors, is because, like I said, you have the ink lines as a foundation, almost like a coloring book outline. Then you can come in and add watercolors, and you can add elements that you didn't ink, like the shadow on the door. So I was really excited to just give this a try. I think that's where the wash enhances the sketch. You get to add this layer of watercolors and let it do what it does best, which is be transparent and support and enhance the line work that you have there already. And so I think that this is a great way to use watercolors with a lot less pressure and also to play. And so I want to point out one other thing is, as I go in and I put in the watercolor wash, I find opportunities to add texture and interest. So you can see them in the stonework. So the stonework, I could leave either one color, or I could have colored it in literally like a coloring book where I fill in the squares of each stone with different colors. But here you can see I just chose a few stones and a few different colors, and then I painted them in, and I also left space, like a gap between the brush strokes. It's in a form is negative painting, and then it creates another layer of texture for the stonework paving on the floor, and it creates texture for the stonework on the wall. And so I love doing things like that. Another example is the foliage. It could all just be one big green mass, but then you can go in and dot in little speckles and hint at grasses, but just by using different brush strokes. And I think that's the really fun part about doing these ink and wash paintings. In fact, I find myself gravitating towards this style or approach when I really want to create something, but I don't want to invest a lot of energy or time into a full painting. It's like I want to create something, but I want to do it for fun and for there to be less pressure. And so I will do line and wash or ink and wash style because, first of all, I tend to do it in a sketchbook, so it already feels a lot less high pressure than doing it on a full sheet, or not a full sheet, but just a sheet of watercolor paper. And the fact that, like I said before, there's line work to help support the wash just makes this feel a lot more free and fun. But I still get to practice watercolors. I get to practice how to use the paint and what effects I can achieve, and just to practice my creativity. And I think that that's a beautiful thing to be able to do in such a loose and fun way. So hopefully you enjoyed watching my process and hearing a few of my thoughts on it. Hey, it's Susan. I know I don't share my face here very often, so I thought I'd pop in and say hello so that you can put a face to the art that is getting created on this channel. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.